Hello everybody, I'm Alexy Khrabrov, the organizer of SF Text Meetup, and here we're on location with Ilya Kreymer, our speaker today, who talked about Wayback Machine, CommonCrawl, Old Web, and he's basically a master of archiving the way the web looked at some point in time, and we're going to talk with Ilya about why is this interesting. Hello, Ilya. It's great to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me speak today.
So it's a fascinating talk. One question is, why is this interesting, and why is this interesting to you?
Well, it is interesting to me, and I think in general, because so much of what happens in our lives happens on the web, and things on the web disappear. People don't realize that it may seem that the web is permanent, but really it isn't. And URLs and content on the web disappears all the time. I don't have stats on me, but in the slide I had other info that from 10 years ago, the web is completely different than how so it's sort of a part of history. It's I think that it's an incredibly important thing to do. And what I'm doing, I think, is building new technology to try to keep up with preserving the web as the web evolves. So a lot of the tools that have been built to preserve the web have been built many years ago, and the web is constantly changing at a really fast pace, and so new tools need to be built in order to keep up with the changes in the web, and at the same time, InterArchive has done a great job of saving the early web, and I'm also interested in kind of making sure that that's preserved using old browsers, and that we could sort of remember how the web was, and then study it and refer back to it using the environments as close as we can to the environments that it existed in.
Okay, and so maybe you can explain to folks who are new to this. So you mentioned multiple things, which are, for instance, Internet Archive is a company, is a non-profit. CommonCrawl is a non-profit. Wayback Machine is a tool which Internet Archive was using. So can we kind of explain which of these things are kind of different entities and how historically they appeared one after the other, and kind of what this field looking like today?
Well, yes, and I think the project, I'm also working with a nonprofit called RiseRoom.org, and then they're a nonprofit committed to art preservation, or digital art preservation, and in general internet preservation. And so webrecorder is also a nonprofit project, and I think that's probably not a coincidence, perhaps, because I think that perhaps preservation of while it'd be great if it was perhaps a for-profit commercial entity, I think that the nonprofit aspect of it makes it more durable in a way, and perhaps more difficult, but also more durable in that people see that this is an organization that is trying to preserve things for the longer term, rather than make a new product and make a bunch of money in the short term for investors, for example. And so I think that the nonprofit approach definitely makes sense for longer term digital preservation, and perhaps is the best approach. I don't know if that's sort of my feeling about it right now, is that nonprofits are a great option for software development also, and in this field in particular.
And I guess my question was also, why do new organizations appear? Because they're already non-profit, so it would be logical for them to all unite. But we see Internet Archive, then we see CommonCrawl, right? And we see this new generation. So what kind of drives kind of the creation of new archival organizations?
Well, I think everyone's, I think it's good that there's multiple organizations that are. I don't think that there should be just one archive. That's dangerous. What if that archive? What if that archive is inaccessible? So I think the more archiving organizations there are, the better. Internet Archive has been around for a long time. They've been crawling the web and also other content. They have an archive of many different things. available to the public. Some things, and then CommonCrawl, for example, is more focused, I think, on perhaps more for researchers in terms of crawling data, not necessarily full websites, but crawling data and making it publicly available for researchers. And what I'm trying to do with webrecorder is kind of distribute all of this so that rather than have one big archive, I would like to build tools that enable many smaller archives, and that perhaps is different than what the Internet Archive's mission is in some sense. So,
yes, I think it's really exciting what you described, because webrecorder lets individuals see that their own history is like, and I think this is the only feasible way to solve this dynamic content problem, right? So because I think a few years ago there was this question, what's behind the question mark, right? Because there are the parameters which configure URL to basically be an API to a database. You cannot crawl the database, right. And so now what's happening, basically everything, Facebook is just giant database, and you cannot crawl it, and so most JavaScript apps become single-page apps, which basically produce content based on where you're clicking. So it almost sounds like you cannot really archive the web, but you can archive some snapshots, right? And that will be kind of a discretized version of the web. Right. Right.
That's definitely, yeah. That's a fundamental problem, is that you only see the client side, not the server side. However, there is a lot of stuff happening on the client side. So as more client side applications become more sophisticated, right now I'm focusing on specifically sort of archiving HTTP traffic, but you could also archive JavaScript events and figure out ways to archive the client side more effectively as well. Although it is true that in some sense you're still creating snapshots as far as the server state is concerned. I think that there's more opportunity to archive the client side as well.
So what do you think about multimedia content? So obviously a lot of these websites are radio stations and TV stations, and so are you trying to capture the sound and the video, or is it up to the sites like YouTube, which can actually host and save the videos? What do we do about this non-text data?
Well, I mean, the idea with webrecorder is that it allows users to archive anything that's what their personal browsing experience is. So if including sound and video. So if you are browsing a YouTube video, it should be able to it should be able to archive that, and that's up to that particular user. As with anything else in their browser, and of course, YouTube is certainly should not be regarded as an archive in any way, because YouTube videos get removed all the time for a variety of reasons, some valid, some less valid, and so if a user needs to have an archive, I mean, the user could be a museum, for example, or a library that would like to have an important video that was uploaded to YouTube. Now, if YouTube decides that they take it down, then that video is lost to everyone, including a memory institution that should have a copy of it. And so with tools like webrecorder, it gives institutions and individuals the ability to archive what they see as important to them.
So basically, you say that I'm owning my information consumption experience, yes. And because it was a time in my life when I was looking at this video, I own that time and I have a record of this, and regardless of what external world is doing with the source of this video, I kind of in my private space, I should be able to enjoy basically, right, like replay of that. So this is very interesting. You're kind of capturing personal time. So I'm just kind of just to go back at your can you talk a little bit about your career, right? Because it's not a very common thing to join a nonprofit archiving the web in Silicon Valley, where there is a million startup opportunities. So can you talk a little bit about how you got involved with computers, the internet, and kind of how did you arrive at this occupation?
Well, a long time ago, I worked in video games. That was actually the first field that I started in, and I worked in video games for a number of years, and I still have many friends in that industry, and that's then I decided to take a break from from programming, and I didn't. I actually focused on playing accordion for a number of years, and then I took a break, but then I kind of decided that it was, my savings were running out, and that it was time to look for to do something that I found to be meaningful. And I had a friend who unfortunately wasn't here tonight, but still a good friend of mine who I played music with, who worked at the Internet Archive, and he told me that they were hiring, and it's like, oh well, I've always known about the Wayback Machine. I thought that was a really awesome tool. Wouldn't it be cool to work on the Wayback Machine? And so I applied, and that's how I started working there in 2011.
So this is serendipity.
Yes, and then.
But also meeting the right people.
Yes, so it's sort of a combination. Yeah, it's an interesting.
I can't help asking you about the accordion because I entertain the idea. Like I'd like the idea of knowing how to play the accordion. How hard is it to actually learn playing the accordion?
Well, with practice it becomes easier, like with anything else.
Let's say I play a little bit of the piano.
Yeah, if you play the piano, that makes it a lot easier. But yeah, I mean that helped me definitely with the right hand. It's pretty much about the same, and the left hand is, I think, a bit simpler even than the piano. So, although lately I've been so busy with webrecorder, I haven't been playing as much. So I need to find another balance, and play some more.
Interesting. Yeah. So we're kind of trying to combine art with data science at our Data by the Bay event. So it's really great to see musicians and data scientists the same person. So we always would be happy to see you play accordion, and give a technical talk. Like that's a fantastic combination.
Well, thank you, and again, thank you again for having me here. Yeah, I think it's I'm happy to have been able to present here.
That was hugely entertaining and very interesting. I think like a lot of all the data scientists and all the text miners, they need this data, right? Like we have this record, now we can go play with this. So I think that's really gives us a lot of insight. So thanks again, and we will happily have you talk in the future.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.